Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Managers need to learn the following phrase. Sir or ma'am, you have mistreated our employees for the last time. Leave and do not return or we will call the police. The OP from our first story would appreciate it. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. The worst customer ever. Background. I worked in a small-town electronics/appliance store when I was in high school. I was only a temporary Christmas worker, so I wasn't till-trained. My job was to help with incoming stock shelves, keep the store tidy, and help customers to the best of my ability, and then hand them off to full-timers to complete the sale. I'm quite tech-inclined and could usually help out with what the customers are asking, but if I got out of my depth, I'd ask one of the full-time staff to assist. Okay, on to the story. Cast, me, Annie, full-time co-worker, Dad, main harasser, not my dad, Mom, his wife, Girl, their daughter, Boy, their son. So I was stocking shelves one day when it was pretty quiet, and this family came in. Dad immediately beelines for me and tells me they need a tablet. Okay, no worries. We have a tablet station set up with all the Android tablets and then a separate display for the iPads because Apple likes to be different. Kids go off to play on iPads, Dad wanders off, and I ask Mom what they need the tablet for, etc. She says it's for girls' schoolwork. She says very shyly that she wants the cheapest tablet, important for later. Sweet, I show her the cheapest one and it fits all her requirements. Okay, time to go out the back and get a boxed one. Dad comes back over and immediately starts asking why we went for that one. I try to explain that it's our cheapest option, and he starts grilling me on what the difference is between that one and a Samsung one. Well, the price for a start. Samsung was a solid $400 more. He gets super in-depth, grilling me about specifics of the tablets. I'm not an expert on Android, I'm better with Apple, so I say, I'm not sure, but let me grab someone who will know and signal to Annie, who's at the counter. She comes over, Dad explodes. No, you need to finish doing your job. To Annie, nope, go away. She hasn't finished her job. This goes on for a few minutes while I try to get a word in. Annie, who's heard everything, says actually she's a trainee. Her job is to help as much as she can and then get one of us. She's done her job. Dad gets in a huff, but finally shuts up. Annie and Mom decide on the cheaper tablet. Annie goes out back to get the boxed one. Dad goes to get kids from iPads and asks me, what are these? I tell him they're iPads. Why didn't you show these? Because Mom asked to see the cheapest option and these started around $500. Dad looks pissed and says, I want one of these. Mom and I are dumbfounded. Dad's insistent, so Annie and I get them sorted on which one, storage size, etc. They end up spending $500 more than planned. Mom's not happy, but I get the vibe she doesn't want to stand up to Dad. They head to the counter to buy, and Annie asks how they'd like to pay. Dad puts a lottery ticket on the counter, not a winning one, just trash he had in his pocket, cracks up like it's the funniest joke, howling with laughter. Annie and I are not having it. Annie asks again, and Mom reluctantly hands over credit card. They pay and finally leave. Nightmare over. They come in the next day. They don't know how to set up the iPad. Our store offered tech solutions / help with tech, etc., but usually it's a paid service through a separate part of the company where someone books and then a solutions employee will come to the store. We don't usually sit there and help out ourselves because we aren't trained for it and we don't get paid for it unless it's a quick fix or you're extra nice. Family comes in, sits at our finance desk, asks for help setting up iPad. I'm not there yet. I didn't start until 11 that day. But Dad insists they only want me to help them, so they hang around. As soon as I walk in, we entered through front doors and walked to back room through the store. He grabs me and tries to pull me over to them. I haven't even clocked in or put away my stuff. I'm trying to tell him this, but he's breaking out the "you need to do your job" spiel again. Never mind that setting up your iPad isn't actually my job. It took another employee intervening before he would let me go upstairs. I clock in, etc., reluctantly head back out. They're still waiting for me. Luckily, I actually know a lot about Apple, so it's not a huge task for me to set up an iPad, though the fact that they didn't have an email address, Who TF doesn't have an email address? Didn't help. Took me 3 hours in the end because Mom didn't understand a lot of it. Dad left and came back with food, tried to give me a donut. I declined, not to be rude, but mostly because I'd already eaten and it seemed wrong to take food from a customer/stranger. He kept trying to shove it in my face, then eventually decided to eat it himself. I was very stoked when I finally saw the home screen of the iPad and I could send them TF home. I won't keep going on here because this is super long already, but they came in a few more times, bought another tablet that was super expensive, WTF, and then there was another time that he accosted me outside the store demanding I sell him a phone, and then had a massive argument with me when I tried to sell him said phone. I realize you were young, but you should have gone to a manager with this. That customer was dangerous. You should not have been made to continue to serve him. I'm surprised that Annie didn't step up and call in the manager when he threw his second fit. Glad you're safe. And our second story. Karen stuck in a blizzard. I'm not sure if this falls into this category, but here we go. This happened a few years ago when I was living in Denver working as a security guard. There was this massive blizzard that just shut the whole town down for a couple of days. There was 3-ish feet of snow on the ground, and I drove a Toyota Yaris, so there was no way I was going to make it into work. I called up my security company, and they said they'd send out one of their rovers that was driving a pickup truck with change to pick me up and take me to work. I was pretty bummed that I wasn't going to get a snow day, but I needed the money, so I agreed. We decided the driver would meet me at a busy intersection so he wouldn't have to navigate the side streets since most of them weren't yet plowed. I bundled up and headed out. It took 15 to 20 minutes to get there, and then I waited on the corner. It was a ghost town, and there were no cars on the road as even the main street had not been plowed. There was a little car in the street that somebody obviously abandoned after getting stuck. About 20 minutes into my wait, this little Suzuki Samurai came plowing down the street and had to stop at the little abandoned car. Once stopped, it was also stuck. I could see Karen getting frustrated and the wheels kept on spinning. She got out of the car and said, "Why would you think your crappy little car could make it through this snow?" She obviously thought the car was mine. I told her the car wasn't mine, but she continued to berate me, calling me an idiot. She took a shovel out of the back of her Suzuki and shoveled a space in front of the tires. She got back in the car and began to rock the car back and forth. She had a little success, but it wasn't enough because she was trying to do this while sitting in the car. She needed help. After 5 to 10 minutes of this, she asked me to help her. After she treated me like crap, I just started laughing at her. She yelled, "F you," right as my ride pulled up. He asked me if she needed a ride, and I said, "She's fine. Let's go," and we left Karen there. To this day, I've never seen a scowl like that as we drove by her. Most likely the car that she assumed to be the OP's, then the owner came back with a tow truck. No way for a car owner to abandon their truck in the middle of the road for so long, or whatever, to tow the car to find out it's wrecked by a Category 5 Karen. You can imagine the rest. And our next story. My wife doesn't ask me to read her bedtime stories anymore. So I wake up very early in the morning, around 3 a.m. to go to work. Naturally, I spend a lot of my weekends catching up on all the sleep that I miss. One night, my wife woke me up about 11 p.m. on a Saturday night asking me to read her a bedtime story. Now, at first, I got really annoyed because I was sleeping like the dead before she shook me awake. But rather than get angry or say no, I just said, okay, and went to our library. I'm a big Warhammer 40K fan, with the Space Wolves, or the Route to anyone in the know, is my favorite Space Marine chapter. I decided to pull out Prospero Burns by Dan Abnett and read it to my wife. I got about 3 very gory, very descriptive pages in before she said, "I'm sorry, I'll never wake you up again. Please stop reading." I said, "Great," and immediately went back to sleep. She hasn't asked me since. Edit. For the record, when this story happened, we were living together but not married. Now we have been married for the last 3 years and couldn't be happier, and I do still read to her, just not in the middle of the night. Not cool that she woke you up, but I think it's really sweet that she asked you to read her a bedtime story. But I also predict that this malicious compliance will come back to bite you in the butt, OP. What do you guys think about that? And our last story. HOA Karen wants to evict me from the house. Well over a decade ago, I was forced to move back in with my dad. Was only planning to stay a few months till I was financially stable enough to get my own place once again, but my dad insisted I stay rent-free while I got my car paid off and some serious dental work done. This lasted 4 years. My dad owns a really nice place in a subdivision that had an HOA. For about 2 of those 4 years, things went fine, until a woman who I shall aptly call Karen became the head of the HOA. Me and Karen had many unfortunate run-ins in the past. She would constantly ask my dad how long until I move out. Then she would always report me and my dad to the HOA for these silliest things, which the HOA would usually ignore or at best dismiss after getting our side of the story. But now that she was in control, she took direct action. The first was to declare me an unauthorized boarder after instituting a bylaw that all adults 21 and older in a household have to be registered with the HOA as a permanent resident. With a minimum of 5 years, they have to stay without penalizing the homeowner. My dad refused to do any such thing because I would eventually be getting my own place, but Karen insisted, even serving him 2 years of backdated penalties for having me there. My dad ended up having to spend money on a lawyer to send her a cease and desist order because I was legally grandfathered in since I was there before the bylaw. Of course, the fines were begrudgingly dropped, but afterwards she would try to nickel and dime my dad with constant little things like me being out at all hours of the night, I work late, or the way I dressed in public being inappropriate, jeans and band t-shirts mostly, and the other stupid crap that most of which weren't in the bylaws. She even took to using a selfie stick over the fence to see if there was anything in the backyard violating the rules. I since moved out of there, and a year or so later, Karen was voted out of the HOA after pissing off the wrong people. Your dad's a wise man. People who always say sue don't understand how expensive, time-consuming, and stressful legal battles are. As you get older, you learn to pick your battles. If you can solve an issue by a less burdensome route, e.g. voting them out, you take it and move on with your life. Getting even's rarely worth the price of admission. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.